Chapter 1666. Oh. In the spectator seats, people were still cheering enthusiastically, making people feel like their hearts were surging. However, for the 8 teams standing on the field, this was not the time to enjoy the feeling of being the center of attention. The referee, Pumpkin, appeared out of nowhere. He stood in front of the 8 teams and spoke with a humorous voice. Please select one participant from each team to participate in the first day of the competition. Secret. Is it a secret? Everyone fell into deep thought. Noah turned his head and looked at the stone tablet in the middle of the field. Day 1, secret plus duel the next day. Plus duel day 3. Plus duel day 4. Plus team duel day 5. After clearly reading the contents of the stone tablet, Noah was still unable to analyze any useful information. The only thing he could be sure of was that this so-called secret was definitely not as simple as an ordinary battle. Otherwise, there would be no need for a duel at the end. The rest of the people were obviously thinking the same thing, and they all began to discuss. Then, it's time for us to send someone. Laxus glanced at Noah. Who should we send? The details of the competition will only be announced after the contestants have been sent out, Mira said. However, from the point of view of the theme of concealment, this time's competition shouldn't have anything to do with a direct confrontation, but rather with concealment, right? Then I won't appear. Gadgula dug his ears, looking bored. I'm not good at doing sneaky things. Noah also frowned. If the Gate of Babylon was still around, no matter what kind of competition it was, Noah would be able to deal with it. But now, his authority was being upgraded, and the Gate of Babylon was left in the space between worlds to defend against the invasion of the shadow. With Noah's current means, he was not very good at things like concealment. If that's the case, why don't we send Zhu Bian? Zhu Bian volunteered and raised his hand. Zhu Bian can change his form and turn into water, maybe he can play a role in concealment. Hearing this, Noah thought for a moment, then nodded and said, Be careful. Be careful. Let's not talk about the rest of the teams for now, but Sabertooth and Raventail are very likely to target us. You have to be on guard against them. After all, Sabertooth had been thinking about how Fairy Tail had snatched the first place in the preliminaries, so it was very likely that they would use this opportunity to target Fairy Tail. As for Raventail, it was needless to say. Fairy Tail and Raventail were absolute enemies. It was basically certain that Raventail would be the target of Fairy Tail. So, no matter what, they had to be careful. I understand. Zhu Bian nodded heavily. His eyes were filled with determination. Then, Zhu Bian is up. After saying this, Zhu Bian walked out of the team and attracted everyone's attention. Leo of Lamia Scale looked at Zhu Bian, who walked out of the team. At first, he was startled, but then an interesting smile appeared on his face. That girl is quite cute. Okay, if that's the case, I'll go up for this round. Ivan of Blue Pegasus was the same as Leo. He had his eyes on Zhu Bian and spoke without hesitation. Please let me go up for this round. Following the players of Lamia Scale and Blue Pegasus who walked out, the rest of the guilds also sped up their selection. In the end, Mermaid Heel's team sent out a girl who looked a little rustic, while Cotter Cerberus sent out a muscular man who wore a headset and had a pigtail. Then, Fairy Tail A's team also made their selection. That guy, Leo, is actually going on stage so soon. Gray pulled off the tie on his clothes, and his eyes became restless. If that's the case, I'll go up for this round. Be careful, Elusha gave the same advice as Noah. Sabertooth and Raventail will most likely target us. Don't be careless. I know, Gray nodded, then walked out of the team. Thus, only Sabertooth had not sent out a contestant yet. It seems that the people who are going up are all people that I don't remember. Lucifer flicked the hat on his head and smiled very elegantly. Then I'll go get to know them and record their names. Justin, Roger, and Olga naturally did not have any objections. After all, none of the people that they cared about had gone up yet. However, Xuanai, who had been silent all this while, suddenly raised his head and spoke. Master Lucifer, please let me go up for this round. All of a sudden, everyone was stunned. I have no problem with that. Lucifer looked deeply at Xuanai and shrugged. But, are you okay with that? Yes. Xuanai nodded expressionlessly. Please let me go up. Justin, Roger, Lucifer, and Olga immediately looked at each other. Understood. Lucifer pressed down on his hat. Don't go easy on me. Xuanai nodded, then walked out of the team. In the blink of an eye, all the contestants from the 8 teams had gone up. As for the others, they retreated to the contestant area to watch. Then there are 8 contestants from each team, right? Pumpkin jumped on the spot a few times, looking very lively. Then if there are no problems, we'll get ready to start. Pumpkin. When Pumpkin's voice fell, a strange phenomenon happened. Clang! A burst of light suddenly bloomed in every corner of the venue. The flashes of light turned into images and eventually turned into buildings, gradually occupying the entire venue. It didn't take long for a city to appear in the venue. The contestants were all startled. Soon after, they were separated by the flashing buildings and scattered to every corner of the town. That was not the end. After the contestants were distributed to the various corners of the town, the missing figures began to appear one after another on the streets of the town. Those were all thought bodies of the 8 contestants. Therefore, in the blink of an eye, every street of the town was filled with thoughts of the contestants, and it became crowded. In the next second, in the sky above the town, crystal screens also flashed, broadcasting the current situation of every contestant in the town. Now, let's begin the explanation of the rules. Chapati picked up the microphone, and let his voice spread to the entire venue. As you can see, the so-called secret is to let the contestants of each team play hide and seek in the town. They are the ones chasing each other, and the ones being chased are also the ones being chased. In the process of the competition, there are no restrictions on methods and magic. As long as you find your opponent and attack, regardless of whether it causes damage or not, if you hit, you will gain 1 point. If you are hit, you will lose 1 point. Chapati reminded. At the same time, please note that the town is filled with your replicas. Once you hit a replica, you will lose 1 point. Finally, according to your points, we will determine the ranking, Chapati announced loudly. The competition time is 30 minutes. Now, the first day of the Great Demon Combat Arts Competition, the secret competition, begins. Chapter 1667. Dang! Following the loud ringing of the bell, the audience from all over the kingdom erupted in enthusiastic cheers as they watched the competition through the projection screen above the venue. In a corner of the audience, a group of people were shouting at the top of their lungs. Come on! Come on! Fairy tale! Leading a group of fairy tale magic shooters, Makarov stood directly on the edge of the audience's wall. He was shouting so loudly that the veins on his temples were popping out, making people worry that he would suddenly be out of breath later. However, under the leadership of Makarov, the group of fairy tale magic shooters yelled tirelessly, cheering for Gray and Julian. In the contestant area, the 2 teams belonging to Fairy Tale were also watching the projection screen, looking forward to the results of the competition. Perhaps because of Noah and the Lush's instructions, Gray and Julian didn't appear too conspicuous after learning the rules. Instead, they immediately rushed into the large crowd of projections on the street, blended into the crowd, and completely disappeared. Not only Gray and Julian, but the contestants of the other teams also understood tacitly and blended into the crowd, using their projections to hide their whereabouts. This was the true meaning of concealment. The members of each team needed to take advantage of the terrain and the crowd to hide their whereabouts, and at the same time, they needed to find their opponents in the vast crowd and give them the right blow. If they hit the real body, they would gain points. If they were hit, their points would be deducted. And if they hit the clones, their points would also be deducted. In the end, the rankings of the 8 teams would be determined based on the points obtained. In other words, the contestants of each team must be very cautious in this competition. They must not only avoid losing points, but also find ways to score points. It's really very difficult. Chapati, who was in charge of the live report, reported dutifully. We can see that the contestants of each team have already blended into the crowd of clones, completely hiding their whereabouts. They are moving and observing in the dark, carefully moving their positions while looking for the contestants of the other teams. As expected of a team that can enter the top 8. Every magic shooter is very clear about what they should do. Yajima praised. However, time is also limited. Once the 30 minutes time limit is up, the results will be out. For this reason, they must find ways to score points. Whether they can remain calm in this situation and not become anxious because of the passage of time, and then reveal their flaws, this is where the contestants will be tested. Our Evan Cohen won't reveal any flaws so easily. Jenny smiled. Please look forward to his performance. While the 3 people on the rostrum were passionately discussing the situation, the sharp-eyed Chapati suddenly noticed the situation on one of the projection screens. His eyes abruptly widened as he excitedly yelled out. That's Snow Agulya from Sabertooth. The magic shooter of the most powerful guild has finally started to move. Chapati's words attracted everyone's attention to the projection screen that was broadcasting Snow Agulya. Following that, everyone began to clamor. There was no other reason. The girl named Snow Agulya didn't hide at all. Instead, she stood openly on the top of the bell tower in the center of the town, and her snow-white coat fluttered in the howling wind. She didn't hide. Chapati shouted in disbelief and excitement. Is this the calmness of the most powerful guild? Everyone in the audience burst into astonishing cheers. In the contestant area, Noah also gazed at this scene, and his eyes flickered. A gust of wind blew by, bringing coldness that was enough to deprive people of their body temperature into this space. Standing on the top of the bell tower, Snow Agulya looked down and closed her eyes after a while. At this moment, the memories that were firmly engraved in Snow Agulya's mind began to replay. For Snow Agulya, it was a memory from 7 years ago. The location of the memory was Magnolia. However, it was only a small alley in Magnolia. At that time, Snow Agulya was just a vagrant. She didn't have anyone she could rely on. She was only 11 years old. She was wearing dirty clothes that hadn't been washed for God knows how many days. Her life was a situation where she couldn't guarantee her survival and could starve to death at any time. Her family had already passed away when she was younger. Her only home was burned down in a disastrous fire. She had no family and no home to return to. In order to survive, Snow Agulya could only sneak into the bustling city and try to pick up some leftovers that the rich people didn't want. Of course, no one would like a child like her. Not to mention, Snow Agulya didn't have anything at that time. Because she was too young and dirty, she wasn't as beautiful and delicate as she was now. It was predictable that she would be bullied. It was at that time that Snow Agulya met him in the alley. He suddenly arrived without any warning, and in an effortless manner, he took care of the group of hooligans who bullied Xuanai in a few moves. He wiped the dirty Xuanai's tender face without any disdain, and gently stroked Xuanai's head. That was the only warmth that Snow Agulya had encountered in the world after her family was destroyed. From then on, Snow Agulya was destined to never forget this person. She still remembered that at that time, the young Snow Agulya asked that person so innocently. "Why are those bad people so afraid of you, sir. Chapter 1668. Just as Xuan'ai raised the golden key high up, Lucy, who saw this scene from the projection, couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Isn't that the key to the 12 ecliptic gates? Star Elven Key. Alusha stared at Xuan'ai on the projection screen and spoke in a low voice. Is that Xuan'ai also a Star Elven Archmage? Noah, who also saw this scene, narrowed his eyes. Sure enough, there is the key to the 12 ecliptic gates. Under everyone's gaze, Xuan'ai's entire body flickered with starlight like magic. The Star Elven Key that was raised high up blossomed with radiance. Open. Libra Constellation Gate Libra. From the radiance blossoming from the Star Elven Key, a magic array suddenly revolved and appeared above the entire clock tower. Immediately, from the magic array, a young girl slowly emerged. It was a young girl wearing a cheongsam, with a tray of Libra hanging in each of her hands. This young girl was precisely the Star Elven of the Libra constellation of the 12 ecliptic gates Libra. Looking at the young girl who appeared from the magic array, Xuan'ai softly spoke. Go, Libra. Libra nodded without any hesitation, lowering the 2 Libra trays in her hands. A burst of astonishing magic suddenly erupted from Libra's body, transforming into formless ripples that reverberated in all directions. Wherever the formless ripples passed, the space actually became heavy. Immediately after, the contestants mixed in the sea of people were all unprepared and suddenly felt their bodies become heavy, uncontrollably smashing onto the ground. Including Gray and Julian. This is. Gray's expression slightly changed. Gravity. Ugh. Julian seemed to be ruthlessly pressed down by something heavy, revealing an uncomfortable expression. Being pressed down by gravity, Libra's magic was the magic that manipulated gravity. At this moment, under the pressure of the suddenly extremely heavy gravity, the members of the other 7 teams were all firmly pressed to the ground, revealing uncomfortable expressions. However, it was only suppressed by gravity at most, and could not be considered an attack. Therefore, Xuan'ai's score did not increase at all. However, this was not Xuan'ai's goal. The reason why Xuan'ai had summoned Libra and had him change the gravity was to find the participants of the various teams that had mixed in with the body of longing. This was because the body of yearning would not be affected by gravity and would still stand in place. As for the contestants, they would definitely be affected by gravity. At this very moment, Snow was relying on her astonishing magic power to support Libra's magic, allowing Libra's magic range to extend to the entire town, suppressing everyone. Then, Xuan'ai took out another key. It was also a golden key. In the contestant area, Lucy couldn't help but cover her mouth. There is a second one. The second key. Alusha was also surprised. Could it be that she can double open the door? This question was answered in the next moment. Activate. Xuan'ai raised the second star essence key high up in the air. The gate of Pisces Biscuit. The star-like radiance once again flickered from the star essence key. Following the rotation of the magic array, 2 huge black shadows scuttled out from the magic array. The black shadows were 2 fishes. The 2 fishes were extremely huge, at least tens of meters long. They looked like eels, but they looked like dragons as they roamed in space. Biscuit. Xuan'ai directly ordered. Attack. The 2 fishes that were roaming in space suddenly separated, as though they were swimming in invisible water. They drew 2 perfect parabolas as they flew to the top of 2 corners of the town. Then, with a sudden burst, they suddenly descended. Bang! The 2 huge fishes fiercely crashed into the ground, stirring up a burst of sand and dust. Ah! Amidst the sand and dust, the 2 figures let out sorrowful cries as they were blown away by the burst of wind. They flew all the way and crashed into the walls of 2 buildings. This was not the end. After sending the 2 contestants flying, the 2 giant fishes named Biscuit once again shot towards the horizon. With an extremely nimble twist of their bodies, they swam in two different directions. Like meteorites falling from the sky, they heavily smashed down. Bang! Another rumbling sound rang out, and the ground cracked from the impact. An astonishing amount of sand and dust once again shook the ground, sending the two figures in the center flying, causing the two participants to let out miserable cries. For a moment, the entire town seemed to have turned into a playground for two huge fishes. The two fishes kept colliding with each other, setting off waves of impact and raising bursts of sand and dust. The ground trembled, and the buildings began to shake. The star spirit named Biscuit was like a dragon roaming in the sea, moving its body within the city that continuously stirred up sand and dust. Under Xuanai's command, it continuously attacked. Firmly suppressed by Libra's gravity, the group of contestants were completely unable to resist. They could only continuously receive heavy impacts, and amidst waves of mournful cries, they were sent flying one after another. Oh! The audience burst into cheers of amazement. That's amazing! Chabadi shouted into the microphone. Under the attack of contestant Yukino, the other contestants can't resist at all. They can only passively take the attacks. Yukino's points are constantly increasing. What an astonishing amount of magic power! Ajime exclaimed with a serious expression. Not only can she open 2 of the 12 zodiac gates at the same time, but she can also make gravity cover the entire town. With such a large area of effect magic, it is reasonable to say that the power should be severely dispersed, but contestant Xuanai is still able to firmly suppress the other contestants, making them unable to resist at all. This level of magic, no matter which guild, is enough to become an S-rank magic shooter. In order to pursue the figure she longed for, after 7 years of hard training, the girl who had problems with food and clothing had completely transformed, possessing astonishing strength. Under such circumstances, even Gray and Julian could only put up some resistance. After dodging a few of Biscay's attacks, they were still hit repeatedly. As a result, in the entire battle, except for Yukino, the points of the other contestants were constantly decreasing. Gray, Brother Gray! Naz, Delusha, Lucy, and Wendy all exclaimed. Julian! In the audience, Makarov and the others also couldn't help but exclaim. The other contestants and members of the other guilds looked at the one-sided situation, and all of them had ugly expressions. The only exception was the sorcerer from Saber-Tooth. Well done. Yukino! Sting laughed loudly. That's it. Amazing magic power. No wonder she can defeat all the other members of the guild except for the 5 of us. The corner of Lucius's mouth slowly rose. This level of strength is already not weaker than us. That's what my memory tells me. I finally understand why Miss personally chose her. Olga snorted softly. Really, why didn't we hear anything about such a powerful member before? That wasn't strange. After learning that Noah had disappeared on Celestial Wolf Island, Yukino just dealt with the guild like a walking corpse while mechanically training. Such a method led to 2 results. 1. Yukino's handling made this girl not very conspicuous in the guild. 2. The continuous mechanical training made this girl who was immersed in sorrow unknowingly hone a magic power that shocked even herself. Therefore, after learning that Noah had survived and was rejuvenated, Yukino shocked the entire guild and defeated all the other members except Sting, Rog, Lucius, Olga, and Maniba in one fell swoop. And such strength was only honed because of one person. Looking at the one-sided situation on the projection screen, Noah stared closely at Yukino, who was holding 2 keys high, her body fluctuating with amazing magic power, and fell into silence. Chapter 1669. Dang 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 dang. When the bell that signified the end of the match rang, Chapati's voice echoed throughout the entire venue. Time's up. The match is over. A crystal screen flashed in mid-air, showing everyone the points that each team obtained in this match. Sabertooth, 77p. Lamia Scale, -4p. Raventail, -6p. Fairytale A Team, Fairytale A, -7p. Fairytale B Team, Fairytale B, -9p. Blue Pegasus, -14p. Mermaid Heel, -17p. Cotter Cerberus, -20p. Looking at the score, the audience burst into cheers. As for the other guilds, they were all silent. On the score table, other than Sabertooth, the other guilds had negative points. Moreover, these negative points added up to -77 points, which offset the points that Xuan'ai had obtained. What did this mean? It meant that Xuan'ai had obtained all the points from the other teams. In the process, Xuan'ai did not hit the duplicates once, nor did she get hit once. Her points did not decrease at all. This match was completely Xuan'ai's specialty. Without a doubt, in this match, Xuan'ai has obtained an overwhelming victory. Chapati reported to the audience. According to this ranking, the 8 teams have also obtained the corresponding points, and the guild rankings have been changed. The current rankings are as follows. First place, Sabertooth, 10p. Second place, Lamia Scale, 8p. Third place, Raventail, 6p. Fourth place, Fairytale A Team, 4p. Fifth place, Fairytale B Team, 3p. Sixth place, Blue Pegasus, 2p. Seventh place, Mermaid Heel, 1p. Eighth place, Cotter Cerberus, 0p. After the first match, our Sabertooth has finally obtained the first place, followed by Lamia Scale. The secret tournament has finally ended. Under Chapati's report, the town and the venue gradually disappeared like a phantom. In the town, the 8 contestants were all teleported out. Moreover, the moment they appeared, 7 of the contestants were kneeling on the ground, constantly gasping for breath. Their bodies were either covered in dust or full of wounds, looking very pathetic. Only Xuan'ai, who was completely unharmed, stood in the cold wind, looking delicate and beautiful. That fellow. Gray raised his head and stared at Xuan'ai with an ugly expression. Zhu Bian. Since he did not have the strength to retaliate. Zhu Bian bit his lips. Who exactly is that Xuan'ai? I have never heard of her before. Li O's face was also somewhat ugly. Of course, Gray, Zhu Bian and Li O were still considered good, at least they dodged the attacks of the Pisces constellation star spirits a few times, and did not let their points fall too far behind. But the 3 of them did not have the opportunity to obtain points under the dual suppression of Pisces constellation and Libra constellation. In the end, in the entire competition, other than Xuan'ai, the rest did not obtain any points, and could only passively dodge and endure Xuan'ai's attacks, allowing Xuan'ai to continuously obtain points. Right now, other than Xuan'ai, the rest of the contestants were only ranked based on their ability to resist and dodge. So, everyone's face was extremely ugly. To this, Xuan'ai only silently raised her head, and looked in one direction. In the next moment, the 2 gazes met in midair. Noah looked at Xuan'ai, who was staring at him, and saw the determination in her eyes, but did not say anything. Noah's intuition told him. Even if it was only at this time, he must definitely pay attention to this girl, and take in this girl's performance in his eyes. Otherwise, it would definitely shatter the heart of this girl who seemed strong, but was actually very fragile, and would never be able to recover. On the side, Mira tightly hugged Noah's arm and said softly, "That child is really strong." Xuan'ai was indeed very strong. As a star spirit archmage, Lucy could not be compared to Xuan'ai at all. Even the original angel could not compare to the current Xuan'ai. Just like what Yajima said. This girl, no matter which guild she was in, had the ability to become an S-rank archmage. If she continued to train, in another 1 or 2 years, it would not be difficult to surpass the current Alusha and Mira, right? Shwenaya. Noah muttered to himself. Very good, I will remember you. Not knowing if it was because she heard Noah's voice, Shwenaya's eyes rippled a little. She retracted her gaze and returned to the contestant area of Sabertooth amidst the cheers of the audience. The rest of the contestants also stood up and returned to the contestant area where their teams were located. I'm very sorry. Julian lowered his head and did not even dare to look at the crowd. Julian has embarrassed you all. Don't mind it. Gadula glanced at Julian and said in a seemingly unconcerned manner. It's not that you are too weak, but that star spirit archmage is stronger than we thought. If the other 4 people are as strong as that star spirit archmage, then there are not many people on our side who can fight against them. Laxus folded his arms and closed his eyes. Although, I don't think that in the end, we will lose. That's right. Mira stretched out her hand and gently hugged Julian. You have worked very hard. It's only the first day. Take it slow. Yes. Julian looked at Noah dejectedly. I'm sorry, Sir Noah. It's just a competition. You didn't lose face. At least we are still in the 5th place. Alusha is also in the 4th place. The gap between us and the 1st place is not that big. We just have to catch up later. Noah shook his head. Don't forget, there will be a duel later. The organizer will choose the contestants for the duel. It's not impossible for them to choose you again. So, you should rest well. Chapter 1670. Tura. It's Tura. Tura is coming out. I didn't expect him to come out in the first duel of the first day. That's great. When the 5th of the 10 Saint Magicians came out on stage, the atmosphere of the entire venue was ignited. At this moment, the audience and the entire venue let out excited shouts. Tura 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 Tura. Immediately, extremely orderly shouts rang out in the air above the entire venue. That enthusiasm was enough to make anyone concede defeat. Apart from the audience, the contestants of the other guilds all focused their attention on 2 places. One was the contestant area 4, Fairy Tale B. The other was the contestant area of Lamia Scale. Under everyone's gaze, in the contestant area of Lamia Scales, Tura, who was dressed in a monk's robe, slowly stood up. An excited smile appeared on his rock-hard face. It seems that even luck is on my side. Hearing this, among the contestants of Lamia Scale, except for Leo, the others didn't understand what Tura meant. In particular, one of the shorter girls had her head tilted to one side, looking confused. Mr. Tura, why do you look so happy? She looked to be around 14 or 15 years old. She had a head of pink hair that was tied into a broom-like ponytail with 2 ribbons. She looked very pretty and cute. The girl's name was Shirley. In the past, during the annihilation of the 6 demon generals, Shirley, who went with Tura and Leo to participate in the annihilation mission, was Shirley. She was Shirley's cousin. At first glance, this little girl seemed to be the same age as Wendy. In fact, regardless of age, from the fact that she was able to form a team with Tura and Leo and participate in the Great Demon Battle exhibition, it was estimated that her strength wasn't weak. In fact, in the Lamia Scale team, besides Tura and Leo, Shirley was the strongest one. However, Shirley's personality was very muddle-headed. In addition, she also didn't know about the past between Noah and Tura, so naturally, she had this question. Thus, Tura smiled at Shirley. Of course I'm happy. In the past 7 years, I've felt regret countless times that I didn't have a good fight with him. Is that so? Shirley scratched her head. In other words, that big brother named Noah Doria is very strong. The person who answered this question wasn't Tura, but Leo. Leo looked at Shirley and said, "If you want to know whether he's strong or not, you can ask your cousin. If you're someone who participated in the Great Demon Battle exhibition, then you'll know how strong he is." "I still don't quite understand," Shirley asked directly. "Could it be that Big Brother is stronger than Mr. Tura?" At least, 7 years ago, Mr. Tura admitted that he wasn't as strong as him. Leo smiled. "Of course, that's not necessarily the case now." "Is that so?" Shirley sighed. "So that's how it is. This is love." "No, it has nothing to do with love." Leo sighed. Her heartbeat had already begun to accelerate. In the arena, the cheers were still incessant, shaking the air and making people's hearts surge. Of course, almost all of those cheers were directed at Tura. Under such circumstances, Noah and Turtledove were facing each other with a distance between them. "I've always wanted to fight with you." The smile on Tura's face didn't disappear. He was obviously in a good mood. "I'm really happy to be able to fight with you so quickly. I also feel very honored to be able to be looked forward to by the 5th Archmage of the 10 Saint Magi," Noah said indifferently. "But, sorry, I don't intend to give you the victory. So, if you want to beat me, you'd better use your full strength from the beginning." Noah's shameless boasting made the audience in the arena start to boo. However, Tura's performance made the audience feel extremely stunned. Of course. Tura stopped smiling, and his eyes became unprecedentedly serious. "I don't have the confidence to do anything to you without using my full strength." Tura's words caused a commotion in the audience, but it also led the atmosphere to a climax. Not giving in to each other. The will to never admit defeat. Which side will win in the end? Chabadi solemnly announced. The first duel of the Great Demon Wars, Fairy Tale B Team Noah Doria vs Lamia Scale, Tura Rhesus. Begin. It was the sound of an invisible mana fluctuation that began to sweep up around the ground where Noah was standing, causing the space to tremble. At this moment, the entire space suddenly stagnated as if it had solidified. The sandstorm that had enveloped half of the venue and was constantly spinning like a vortex also stopped. Bang! In the next second, along with an explosive sound, a wave of extremely terrifying magic power exploded from Noah's body, turning into a phosphorescence that was like flames that slowly burned. What? Tura was shocked. However, before Tura could react, the mana aura that soared from Noah's body suddenly exploded, turning into a mana light beam that soared into the sky. In an instant, it scattered the clouds and made the entire sky chaotic. Rumble. The ground began to shake without any reason. Kacha kacha. With the pillar of light as the center, a series of cracks slowly spread out in the venue amidst a bone-chilling cracking sound, causing grains of sand and gravel to begin to float into the air. Noah just raised his head and looked at Tura, his dark eyes flashing with a sharp light. All of a sudden, the mana light pillar that rose from Noah's body expanded bit by bit, stirring up a terrifying hurricane that directly blew away the sandstorm that enveloped half of the venue, forming a shockwave in the form of a ring. At this moment, the entire venue was shaking as if it had encountered an earthquake, shaking desperately. Woo 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 woo. In the spectator stands, the spectators from all over the kingdom let out cries of surprise. Under the effect of the earthquake-like shaking ground, they all fell to the ground with cries of agony. As for the magic shooters from the various large guilds, they were also trying their best to stabilize their bodies under the influence of the shaking ground. At the same time, they looked at the terrifying mana light beam that soared into the sky from the center of the venue with a horrified expression on their faces. Impossible. Justin's face was full of horror. Impossible. Olga was also horrified. Impossible. Lucius could no longer maintain his elegance, and his face was covered with drops of sweat. As for Xuanai, Her pair of beautiful eyes were filled with uncontrollable shock. Rumble. Under everyone's horrified expressions, the mana that soared from Noah's body continued to wreak havoc, causing the entire Frabird dome to shake and let out mournful cries. All of a sudden, the entire venue seemed to have fallen into a scene of disaster, causing the ground to crack and the air to tremble non-stop. One by one, the audience let out miserable cries and laments, falling into a daze and chaos. Even the bystanders were in such a state, let alone Tura, who was directly facing such a terrifying mana. She was in the center of the shock waves caused by the mana light beam that soared into the sky. Chapter 1672. Cough, cough, cough. While coughing, Jula supported herself with one hand on the wall and the other on her knees. She stood up awkwardly and looked forward. A drop of sweat dripped down from her chin and wet the ground. In the auditorium, the audience got up from the ground with lingering fear. They looked at Noah in the venue in shock. Their faces were all filled with shock. Apart from the sorcerers, the audience, who were ordinary people, could not understand what had just happened. The audience only knew that as soon as the competition started, the entire venue was shaken by Noah, and they were all affected. By the time the earthquake stopped, Jura was already in such a sorry state. This situation made the audience unable to react in time. On the rostrum, Chapati, Yajima, and Jenny all had stiff expressions. After a while, Chabati was the first to react. He picked up the microphone and spoke with a trembling voice. Hard to believe. That Dula is actually at a disadvantage. This voice awakened everyone who was standing there in a daze. The entire place fell silent. Oh, 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 oh. In the next moment, astonishing cheers erupted from the audience, causing the entire venue to shake. Although they couldn't understand what had happened, there was one thing that everyone understood. That was, as one of the 10 great Saint Magi, Jura had met a true opponent at this very moment. This match was destined to be more exciting than anyone had imagined. As long as the audience understood this point, it was enough. Therefore, all the spectators had forgotten their contempt for Noah earlier and broke out into cheers. This time, the cheers were not only for Dula, but also for Noah. Well done. Go. Noah. Defeat Dula. Defeat him. Not to mention the audience, even the magic shooters of Fairy Tale cheered excitedly. On the other hand, the contestants from the other guilds were shocked when they saw Turtledove's miserable state. How is this possible? Leo murmured in disbelief. 7 years have passed, and Mr. Abdullah still can't do anything to that person. So powerful. Shirley's mouth was also slightly agape. No wonder Mr. Dura treated that big brother as an opponent. That guy. Sting couldn't help but gulp. So it's that strong. Noah Dole. Even Logue, who had been silent all this time, had a solemn expression on his face. Sweat dripped down his forehead. Was the Phantom Lord destroyed by such a man? That's too shocking. Lucifer covered his face with his hat so that no one could see his expression. It seems like that man's strength has exceeded our expectations. Hey. Olyaga clenched his fists, his face twitching. That guy, don't tell me he can really defeat Abdullah. No one answered Olyaga's question. Everyone fell silent as they recalled the terrifying magic power just now. Only Xuanai's eyes flashed with an extremely bright light. She was both excited and expectant as she spoke softly. If Lord Noah can really defeat Jura. Lucian muttered. Thinking of this, Yukino's heart was filled with expectation. Sure enough, Noah-sama is the strongest high mage. Aside from Yukino, there was another person in the contestant area who was looking forward to Noah. Noah Duria, the man who saved my brother and killed Jalal. Kagura looked expectantly at Noah, who was standing in the middle of the hole. She tightened her grip on the tachi in her hand. I really want to fight him. Noah didn't seem to notice anything amidst the cheers and shock of the entire city. He stared at the panting Tura and said after a long while, "That's right." After a while, he said, "This doesn't seem like the kind of mistake you would make, Abdullah." Since the start of the match, Abdullah had made two mistakes. 1. He intended to use pure magic power to start the match with Noah. 2. He used pure elemental magic to attack Noah. There was no need to explain the first mistake. It was obvious how irrational it would be to compete with Noah, who had unlimited mana, in terms of mana. However, this mistake was pardonable. After all, Abdullah didn't know the extent of Noah's magic power. He couldn't be blamed for making such a mistake. However, the second mistake was somewhat inexcusable. That's true. Abdullah bitterly smiled. I forgot that magic is ineffective against you and used pure elemental magic to attack you. This is a mistake I shouldn't have made. During the time of the alliance, Noah had already shown that magic was ineffective against him. Thus, Abdullah also knew that Noah had such an ability. But in such a situation, Abdullah still made this mistake. This was a mistake he shouldn't have made. In order to defeat me, you are more or less blinded by the desire to win, Noah said in a critical tone. If that's the case, you won't be able to defeat me. It's time to calm down, Abdullah. Indeed, I was blinded by the desire to win. Abdullah took a deep breath and finally calmed down. A smile reappeared on his face. Then, let's start again. Hearing this, Noah suddenly smiled. I'm ready anytime. Seeing that Noah and Abdullah were facing each other again, the audience cheered loudly. The atmosphere had reached a peak. Then, a huge amount of mana slowly rose from Noah and Jura's body, igniting the atmosphere of the scene. I'm coming. Abdullah shouted. Iron rock pillar. An earthen yellow magic array suddenly spun out from the ground beneath Turtledove. Immediately, huge rock pillars rose from the magic array like sharp thorns. They shot out from the ground and rushed towards Noah. Looking at the huge rock pillars rushing towards him, Noah's body did not move. However, around Noah, a blue magic array suddenly appeared, as if directly imprinted on the space surrounding Noah. Collect. Cast, projection. Around Noah, one of the magic arrays suddenly gathered mana and turned into a blue flash of light. Like a beam of light, it shot out and instantly struck the huge rock pillars that were charging at him. Bang! A deafening explosion rang out, setting off astonishing flames and shockwaves. The huge rock pillar that was rushing towards them was blasted into dust by the beam of magic power, and was annihilated by the beam of magic power. The mana beam didn't slow down at all as it streaked across the air, creating a sharp sound as it flew towards Kara's direction. Abdullah was suddenly startled. He put his hands together and frantically agitated his magic power. Iron rock pillar. The ground beneath Jula's feet immediately trembled, and a huge rock wall rose up, firmly protecting Jula behind it. The magic light beam streaked across the space and met him head-on. Boom! Amidst the loud explosion, the magic power beams blasted apart one huge rock wall after another, causing rocks and dust to explode everywhere. A wave of fire and shockwaves swept up in the center of the venue, blowing in all directions. The surrounding audience suddenly cried out in alarm. Hats, bags, and trash were swept away by the impact, causing the venue to become a mess. The impact even blew in the direction of the rostrum, causing Chapati, Yajima, and Jenny to cry out in alarm. At this moment, in the middle of the hall, Jula's roar resounded once again amidst the turbulent waves of fire. Iron rock powder explosion. The moment the violent roar sounded, huge rock pillars with sharp spikes at the top, which were obviously lethal, burst out from all directions of the venue and turned into rock whips. They were like pythons, extremely nimbly sweeping through the space and surrounded Noah. Chapter 1673. Rumble. Under the tremor of the ground, sharp rock pillars sprang up one after another. In an instant, they filled the entire space and turned into agile pythons. One after another, they violently rushed towards the center, mercilessly crashing down at the same time. Noah only felt that the sky suddenly darkened. From all directions of the venue, sharp rock pillars had already swept through the air and heavily fell from the sky. If his ability points were still there, Noah might not even need to dodge or block. He could rely on his powerful durability and magic to weaken physical attacks to resist this level of attack. But now, Noah's ability points had been left in the world between worlds to upgrade. His body had returned to the state before entering the dark bullet world. Relying on his current body, if he was hit by those sharp rock spikes, he would definitely end up riddled with holes. Therefore, Noah did not hesitate to chant the incantation. Magic array change, exchange patterns, collective change. The blue magic array imprinted in the space suddenly flashed, like a shield, surrounding Noah. Of course, the magic array did not have the ability to defend. As one of the two magic arrays that Noah had mastered after the integration of rune magic with the authority, these magic arrays were just a cannon. Apart from being a cannon, they did not have any other function. Therefore, after layer upon layer of magic arrays surrounded Noah, the blue magic arrays immediately lit up and gathered magic power. Cast. Magic flashes once again burst out from the magic arrays, causing beams of magic power to burst out in all directions, welcoming the rock spikes. Bang 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 bang. Shocking explosions rang out in the venue one after another. The huge rock thorns that came from all directions were directly blown apart by the magic light beams. The rock thorns exploded into rubble that filled the sky and fell to the ground, causing a burst of crackling sounds. Now! Jura's eyes flashed. Overlord rock shatter. The gravel that fell to the ground suddenly paused, then turned into bullets that suddenly shot in Noah's direction. Noah immediately tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, and like a rocket, he rushed towards the sky. The pieces of rubble that shot towards Noah suddenly collided with each other at his original position. The collision between the rocks was like the collision between bombs. It exploded and a burst of flames spread out. In an instant, it covered a quarter of the entire venue, burning the ground until it was black. Noah, who was flying towards the sky, directly released the energy in his body to counteract the gravity and pressure. He floated in the air and looked down at the explosion below. He then raised his eyes and looked towards Jura's direction. Then, it's my turn. Noah softly chanted. Magic array change, direct flow, collective release. The magic arrays covering Noah's body began to move again. As they rotated, they turned into turrets and aimed at Turtledove, gathering mana in them. Cast. Flashes of light burst out one after another, causing the magic power to turn into beams of light, causing a sharp sound of breaking through the air. They flashed through the space like a violent storm, falling from the sky and shrouding the ground below. Looking at the terrifying beams of light that fell like a storm, Jura mobilized all the magic power in his body. His robe fluttered as he roared. Rocky Mountain. Suddenly, the ground around Jura began to squirm, and it began to change shape. It surged up like a wave, and then twisted like clay. Finally, it turned into a statue that looked like a war god, covering Jura in it. The beams of light that fell from the sky were like raindrops, falling one by one on the huge statue. Pang 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 pang. Along with the sound of explosions, the beams of light exploded on the huge statue, stirring up flames and attacking the standing war god, causing the ground of the entire venue to shake once again. The audience didn't know how many times they cried out in alarm, but under the tremors of the ground, they became flustered. Monsters. Those two. Even the high mages from the famous guilds couldn't help but cry out, and then they began to stabilize their bodies in a fluster, trying not to be overturned by the tremors of the ground. In this way, only Noah, who was floating in the air, wasn't affected at all. He was still looking down. Pang 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 pang. The beams of magic power continued to explode from the magic arrays as if they didn't cost money. They fell like raindrops, bombarding the war god statue. The continuous bombardment not only caused the ground to shake more and more frequently, but it also caused the waves of fire to spread to the surroundings. It had already spread to the entire venue, burning the ground and the air, causing the temperature to rise little by little. In the venue, everyone was sweating due to the rising temperature. However, the war god statue didn't show any signs of falling apart under the bombardment of the magic cannons. It was still standing, firmly protecting Jura. Looking at this scene, Noah raised his eyebrows. It's so tough. It seems that I don't need to show mercy. After saying that, Noah extended his hand towards the statue of the god of war. Magic array convergence, forward flow patterns, complete. The magic arrays that turned into cannons suddenly rotated in the air like machines and gathered in front of Noah's palm. In an instant, they overlapped one another, and in the blink of an eye, they formed an extremely complex and huge magic array. Clang! An unprecedented light flashed on the complex and huge magic array, causing waves of terrifying magic power to begin to gather inside. In the next moment, Noah suddenly opened his mouth. Cast! As soon as his voice fell, a dazzling light burst out from the magic array, turning into a beam of light that penetrated the sky and earth, and directly fell down. The beam of light evaporated the air, separated the waves of fire, and caused the space to tremble slightly. Then, under the horrified gazes of the audience, it landed on the huge war god statue. An earth-shattering roar resounded and rushed into the sky, causing the whole world to tremble in an instant. It was so piercing that everyone's eardrums were in severe pain. In that instant, everyone in Coloches could see a blinding flash of light blossoming in the hall of the giant egg. Like a tide, the light surged in all directions and covered the entire hall. No one knew how long this phenomenon lasted. It wasn't until the deafening sound disappeared that the dazzling light gradually dissipated, exposing the great demon battle arts exhibition ground to the air. Then, the audience who were covering their ears tentatively opened their eyes that were tightly closed because of the dazzling light and looked at the center of the venue. In the next second, everyone immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. What appeared in front of everyone was a real piece of scorched earth. The previously intact ground was not only covered with cracks, but it was also completely scorched black and emitted wisps of smoke. It was as if it had been burned by magma, causing the air to become somewhat dry and hot. The war god statue that protected Tura had long since disappeared, leaving only pieces of gravel covering the entire venue. In the air, Noah carried the unconscious Tura and slowly landed on the ground. Under the sluggish gazes of the audience, Noah indifferently opened his mouth. So, the winner has been decided, right? His words woke everyone up from their stupor. The match is over. Chapati hurriedly announced. Winner. Fairy tale beat Noah Dole. The cheers that were louder than any of the previous ones soared into the sky, announcing the end of the match. Chapter 1674. Under the cheers of the audience, Noah brought the fainted Kara back to the contestant area of Lamia Scales and left her under their care. Then, he left under the awestruck gazes of Leo and Shirley, and returned to his own contestant area amidst the cheers of his companions. Looking at the smiling Noah under the support of his companions, the other high mages of the other guilds also looked at him in awe. Many people had already heard of the rumors about Noah. However, that was 7 years ago. Time was always merciless. 7 years was quite a long time. At the very least, it was enough to make people forget the glory of a person. There was a saying, seeing is believing, but hearing is false. After 7 years, even though many people knew that Noah had killed one of the 10 great saint mages, it was just a rumor that couldn't arouse the reverence of others if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes. Not to mention, when he killed Joseph, Noah did not personally make a move. Instead, he let the golden wolf Bio, who was still fused with his soul at that time, finish off Joseph. Thus, in the eyes of others, Noah was perhaps just a high mage who used a powerful tamed beast to achieve his glory. However, it was different now. Noah not only defeated a 10 great saint mage in front of everyone's eyes, but he also did not suffer a single injury during the whole process. He even looked quite relaxed. This way, even if people were not convinced, they had no choice but to accept it. Thus, in the audience, Noah's name was constantly mentioned. His appearance was also firmly engraved in the hearts of everyone who watched this match. In the contestant area of Raventail, Alexei looked at the completely scorched arena, the expression under his mask extremely uncertain. It was unknown whether or not he had sensed the uncertainty in Alexei's heart, but a short, fat, and annoying-looking fatty spoke in a low voice. "Sir Alexei, do we still continue with our plan?" "Continue." Alexei gritted his teeth hatefully. "I must obtain lumen starlight." "But, Lord Alexei, that Noah Dole is so strong. I'm worried that if we act carelessly, our plan might be exposed ahead of time," the short fatty reminded. "What do you think we should do?" Alexei's face darkened. However, it had to be said that Alexei was indeed worried about this. Looking at Noah, who was being supported by everyone in the contestant area of Fairy Tale, Alexei struggled in his heart for a while. In the end, he let out a light breath and said coldly, "Then, before we start the plan, let's not make a move against the members of Fairy Tale for the time being. If you guys come across any members of Fairy Tale, use your own strength to deal with them. Don't play tricks and ruin my plan." "Got it." The short fatty agreed. Only then did Alexei's expression become better. Looking at Noah, who was being supported by everyone, he snorted coldly and turned his head away. At the same time, in the contestant area of Saber-Tooth, the group of magic shooters fell into silence. Looking at the venue that was severely scorched and recalling the terrifying magic power that erupted from Noah's body and that pillar of light that pierced through the sky, the group of people couldn't help but clench their fists. In the end, it was Lucifer who broke the silence first. "We have to admit that we underestimated this Noah Dole. To be able to easily deal with the power of the 10 great Saint Magi, that power is genuine," Roger also interjected, which was rare for him. "He's much stronger than we thought." "I know, I don't need you to remind me." Christine was speechless. "After we go back, I will be responsible for reporting this matter to the president and let him make a decision." "Don't we need to call the young mistress back?" Olga asked in a deep voice. "If we don't gather the 5 strongest people, we might not be able to win against that guy. The young mistress is working outside now. It's estimated that she won't be able to come to Coloches until tomorrow," Lucifer said. "If we call the young mistress back now, it might be very troublesome." "There's no need to go to that extent." Christine pursed her lips. "The Great Magic Combat Arts competition isn't a one-person competition, but a guild competition. So what if he's the only strong one? If it's only one person, he won't be able to shake our Saber-Tooth's position as the strongest." Everyone nodded in agreement. The truth was indeed so. The Great Magic Combat Arts competition was a competition between guilds. No matter how strong Noah was, under the constraints of the rules, he wouldn't be able to reverse the situation. Not to mention other things, just for the duel, the contestants were all decided by the organizers. Noah might not be chosen to fight. And as long as Noah couldn't fight, this person was nothing to worry about. As for the competition, it wasn't necessarily a competition of strength. It wasn't certain who would win and who would lose. Therefore, although Christine and the others already looked at Noah in a new light, they didn't panic because of it. Besides, no matter how strong Noah was, it had nothing to do with Christine and the others. After all, the opponent that Christine and Roger had their eyes on wasn't Noah in the first place. There's only one person I want to fight. Christine's eyes flashed with a sharp light. Naz Dolagner, if you don't have the strength of Noah Dole, then just wait to kneel in front of me. Gadjaloo. Roger's eyes also flashed. You were once mercilessly defeated by Noah Dole. How strong are you now? Let me see. As for Lucifer and Olga, they didn't have any opponents that they wanted, so they fell silent. Ignoring the conversation of Christine and the others, Xuanai just kept looking in the direction of Noah, her eyes rippling with a strange light. Lord Noah, you are indeed the strongest, but I won't lose to you. No, I can't lose. When the various guilds began to pay attention to Noah, no one noticed. In the corner of the spectator seats, there was a person wearing a black robe and a hood. His face couldn't be seen clearly at all. This person was staring at Noah, who was being supported by his companions in the guild. He couldn't believe it and squeezed out this sentence in a panic. Who is he? There's no such person in the guild. Not a single person paid attention to this sentence. After Noah's match ended, there were 3 more matches. However, these 3 matches weren't as interesting as the one between Noah and Jura. The matchups of the 3 matches are as follows. Blue Pegasus vs Mermaid Heel. Sabertooth vs Cotter Cerberus. Fairy Tail Team vs Raven Tail. In the first match, Lotus from Blue Pegasus took the field and fought against a member of Mermaid Heel. In the end, Lotus won. In the second match, Olga from Sabertooth fought against a member of Cotter Cerberus and also won. The third match was between Lucy from Fairy Tail A and a girl named Freya from Raven Tail. She was a member of Fairy Tail, and her opponent was Lucy from Fairy Tail. Freya was also a member of Raven Tail. In the end, perhaps because of Alexi's instructions, Freya didn't show off too much and was defeated by Lucy, who had learned how to double open the door. Just like this, the 2 teams of Fairy Tail won at the same time in the duel and both earned a valuable 10 points, causing the guild's ranking to jump to the top. Chapter 1675. Thus, the first day of the Great Magic Battle exhibition came to an end. As the sun gradually began to set in the west, the spectators began to walk out of the stadium one by one. On one hand, they were talking about today's match, and on the other, they were looking forward to tomorrow's match. It had to be said that today's competition could indeed be considered exciting. In the PvP segment, the audience saw with their own eyes the strength of the strongest guild, Sabertooth. During the duel segment, the audience saw with their own eyes how terrifying Fairy Tail, once known as the strongest guild in the game, was. Noah and UNI's performance made the audience leave the venue with great satisfaction, and they were looking forward to tomorrow's competition. And these people did not realize it. Among the topics they talked about, the name Fairy Tail, which was despised by everyone before today, kept popping up. The so-called mortals were so realistic. Before Fairy Tail had shown enough ability, everyone looked down on it. And after Fairy Tail displayed enough power, everyone began to revere it again. In the end, for these people, the world of sorcerers was a world that was difficult to reach. Therefore, the rise of Fairy Tail did not hurt or itch these people at all. As long as the following competition was exciting enough, then, for these ordinary people, it was enough. Of course, at best, it was only for ordinary people. For those sorcerers, the power displayed by Fairy Tail and Sabertooth today would definitely make many people think about it. Would Fairy Tail be the one to regain their past glory? Or would Sabertooth continue to maintain the title of the strongest? Everyone began to discuss animatedly, and they were looking forward to it. Under such circumstances, no one realized. Unknowingly, they had already begun to compare fairy tale with saber-tooth. Similarly, no one realized. At this moment, at the top of the dome, a man wearing armor was looking down at the crowd that was gradually flowing out of the venue. His face was extremely solemn. This person was impressively the commander of the Fiori Kingdom Sakura Knights that had a short conflict with Noah yesterday, Alcardios. Finally, the great demonic combat arts exhibition is about to begin again. Alcardios muttered to himself. This year is already the 7th year, right? Up until this year, the great magic battle exhibition had been held for a total of 7 years. 7 years of time was enough to turn the once glorious fairy tale into a bottom-feeder guild. It was also enough for the once insignificant saber-tooth to rise up and become the strongest guild in the game. But, for the kingdom, these were not that important. The reason why the kingdom held the great magic battle exhibition was not to entertain the people, but for their own purpose. This purpose, very few people knew. And Alcardios just so happened to be one of the core figures. In order to carry out the kingdom's plan, we spent 7 years preparing. With the great magic battle exhibition as bait, we made the Magic Guide Guild from all over the kingdom gather here every year and let the elites of these guilds compete in order to collect a large amount of magic. Alcardios slowly raised the corner of his mouth. It seems that after this year's great magic battle exhibition, we will be able to collect all the magic we need. It would take 7 years to collect the magic power. One could only imagine how much magic power the kingdom required. At least, Alcardios was prepared to use more time to collect the magic. But, this year, there was an anomaly. Noah Dole. To think that he could possess such a level of magic power on his own. What a frightening sorcerer. Alcardios recalled the scene with his own eyes today and revealed a smile with lingering fear and unusual excitement. However, thanks to him, the amount of mana we'll be able to gather this year will definitely be greater than any of the previous years. Once this year's great demon battle exhibition is over, we'll definitely be able to gather all the mana we need. Not only that. In addition to the large amount of magic, Alcardios and the kingdom's plan required the assistance of another kind of person. Archmages of the Star Spirits. The smile on Alcardios' face became wider. I didn't expect that 2 archmages of the Star Spirits would appear in this year's great magic battle exhibition. It's as if fate is starting to help us. The so-called star spirit magic was an ancient magic that summoned the star spirits of a total of 88 constellations from the star spirit world for one's own use. This ancient magic was not only very rare, but it was also said that if the key to the top of the 88 constellations was collected, it could even be used to change one's fate. To this day, there were only a few people who could use this magic in the entire Fiori kingdom. And the kingdom's plan just happened to require the power of archmages of the star spirits. For this reason, in the 7 years of collecting magic, the kingdom had spared no effort in searching for archmages of the star spirits. In the end, they could not find a single one. Originally, the kingdom was prepared to give up on searching for archmages of the star spirits and use magic similar to archmages of the star spirits as a substitute to start the plan. Who knew that 2 archmages of the star spirits would appear in this year's great magic battle exhibition? Moreover, those 2 archmages of the star spirits have a certain degree of relationship with Noah Dole. This is really too much of a coincidence. Alcardios looked up at the sky and spread out his hands, loudly declaring. Noah Dole. Lucy Hatfilia. Snow Agulia. I'm here, looking forward to you being the last key to completing our plan. The last key to completing our solar eclipse plan. On the other side, Fairy Tale, who had left the venue, did not directly return to the hotel. Instead, they went to the bar and started eating and drinking. The reason for doing so was actually very simple. Apart from needing to fill their stomachs, they also wanted to celebrate the victory of the first battle of the day. Even though in the PvP segment, because of Snow's strength that exceeded everyone's expectations, Fairy Tail didn't obtain a complete victory, but Gray and Julian weren't just for show either, obtaining 4 points and 3 points for their respective teams. In addition, Noah and Lucy had both won the duel and won the most important 10 points. The two teams were now at the top of the rankings. They were only below Sabretooth, who had won 10 points in both the duel and the duel. If this continued, it was not impossible for them to return to the first place. Not to mention Makarov, even members such as Makarov and Wakaba, who were not optimistic about participating in the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition before, couldn't help but shout loudly that they needed to celebrate. So, a group of Fairy Tail's magic shooters gathered in a bar, eating and drinking while making a ruckus. It seemed that they were going to make a ruckus for the whole night. In the direction of the bar, Noah was holding a glass of wine, looking at his companions who were making a ruckus, but he was lost in thought. Looking at Noah like this, Makarov, who was already a little drunk, couldn't help but wonder. "What are you thinking about?" Hearing this, Noah hesitated for a moment, then said to Makarov, "Grandpa, did you notice that today's Great Demonic Combat Arts competition seemed a little strange?" If this small amount of mana was lost under normal circumstances, it would definitely be discovered by the high mages themselves. But during a battle, high mages needed to consume mana, and that level of mana loss was not easy to detect. Only Noah, with his superb perception ability, could discover this phenomenon. If it had been anyone else, they really wouldn't have been able to discover it. Mana has been sucked away. Makarov put down the wine glass in his hand, and his wrinkled brows began to furrow. This problem can be big or small. If the mana of the high mages being absorbed was just a coincidence or a natural phenomenon, then there was nothing strange about it. This world was full of all kinds of magical miracles. Sometimes, some strange occurrences were similar to natural occurrences, and there was nothing strange about it. But if it was a man-made problem, then it was different. For example, the king of the world of Edras once had designs on Aslan's mana, and didn't hesitate to use the super subspace magic, anima, to turn Aslan's high mages into magic crystals and use them as consumables. That was a matter of life and death, and couldn't be ignored. Another example was Jalal, in order to recreate the forbidden magic that could resurrect people, spent 8 years and used a large amount of magic crystals to build the Paradise Tower, and used it to activate the forbidden magic called our system. That was a problem that involved taboos, and couldn't be ignored. In this world of magic, the so-called mana was that important. Therefore, the existence of a lumen starlight was something that transcended time. With it, any kind of forbidden magic could be used at will, and there was no need to spend time to collect mana. If it fell into the hands of evil people, it would be like the third perpetual motion mechanism that was abused, and would only be reduced to an element that could destroy mankind. If the mana of the high mages that appeared in the Great Magic Battle exhibition had been artificially absorbed and collected, then there would be a need to worry about whether someone wanted to use that mana to use forbidden spells or magic-conducting weapons that could endanger humans. Thinking of this, Makarov spoke solemnly. Could it be that Ivan did something evil to get his hands on lumen starlight? I've thought about it too, Noah agreed. It's just that when fighting with Lucy, Freya, who belonged to Raventail, also had a small part of her mana sucked away. If it was Raventail who did it, then there was no reason to absorb the mana of her own people. You're right. Makarov nodded. It seems that it's necessary to investigate this matter a little. I don't think this matter is that simple. Noah looked at Makarov and instructed. So, Grandpa, if you plan to investigate, don't make too big of a move, so as not to arouse the vigilance of the mastermind behind the scenes, and attract unnecessary trouble. Chapter 1677. At this time, Kagura and Milyana, who were talking about something, also noticed Noah and Alusha walking into the park and cast their gazes at them. Little Elu. Miliana waved at Alusha happily, then looked at Noah and winked mischievously. Little Noah, you're finally here. Don't call me Little Noah. Noah said helplessly. Unlike us, you haven't been stopped for 7 years. You're 7 years older, why are you still so naughty? It's because 7 years have passed. I'm older than you now. Isn't it good to call you Little Noah? Miliana giggled. And I've always been like this. After all, I have the strongest vitality. Hearing this, Noah couldn't help but smile, but he didn't really feel that it was bad. Seeing that Noah wasn't very surprised, Alusha felt strange. Noah, did you already know that Miliana had joined the Mermaid Heel? I only found out yesterday. Noah explained. After I passed the preliminaries, I asked Grandpa to help me find information on the 8 teams participating in the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition. It was then that I found out that Miliana had joined the Mermaid Heel. Similarly, Noah also knew that the black-robed person in the Mermaid Heel was Miliana at that time. So, when Alusha asked Noah to come out and meet people with a happy face, Noah guessed that Alusha had discovered Miliana's true colors. What? Alusha said with some annoyance. Since you already know about Miliana, why did you ask me to help you investigate? I told you, I only found out after I went back and asked Grandpa to find the information. Noah smiled bitterly. Well, anyway, that's why you found out Miliana's true colors, right? That's right. Miliana hugged Alusha and rubbed Alusha's face while speaking cheerfully. To be honest, when little Elu came to the Mermaid Heel Hotel to find me, I was shocked. I planned to wait until the end of the Great Demon Battle Arts competition to reveal my true colors. Since you're here, you should have met me earlier. Alusha didn't refuse Miliana's intimacy, but she reprimanded her. I missed you guys. I missed you too, little Elu. Miliana smiled and hugged Alusha tightly. Hugh, Simon, and Wooly and the others missed you too. By the way, since you've joined the Mermaid Heel, what about Simon and the others? Noah asked. Did they also join a guild? No, I'm the only one who joined a guild. Simon and the others are still traveling. Miliana let go of Alusha and hugged Kagura. Besides, I only joined because little Kagura is in the Mermaid Heel. Hearing this, Noah and Alusha turned their gazes to Kagura. Under Noah and Alusha's gazes, Kagura gently pushed away Miliana and came to Noah. Kagura raised her head and looked at Noah with a serious expression. I've wanted to see you for a long time. I can see that. Noah met Kagura's gaze and said directly. Since it's already like this, please allow me to ask you a question. Do we know each other? As early as the first time they met, Kagura had shown a certain degree of interest in Noah. Although it wasn't as serious as Yukino's, Noah knew that Kagura also had some connection with him. It wasn't until he learned that Miliana was in the Mermaid Heel that Noah felt that perhaps Kagura was paying attention to him solely because of Miliana. Unfortunately, Noah guessed incorrectly. We really don't know each other, Kagura said. But my older brother has mentioned you in front of me more than once, and he's praised you a lot. Older brother. That's your older brother, right? Noah said in surprise. Your older brother knows me. The one who answered this question wasn't Kagura, but Miliana. Don't be scared, Miliana said with a mischievous smile. Kagura-chan is actually Simon's younger sister, his biological younger sister. Simon's younger sister. Noah looked at Kagura in surprise. You're Simon's younger sister. What? Alusha also stood up in surprise and looked at Kagura with surprise. You're Simon's younger sister. As early as when the Tower of Paradise incident was resolved, Simon mentioned to everyone that he had a younger sister who had been separated from him since he was a child. In order to find his younger sister's whereabouts, as well as to see the world, Simon took Miliana, Zio, and Wooly on a trip together. This Kagura in front of them was actually Simon's younger sister? Presumably, you already know that my older brother and I were separated from each other when we were young. All these years, I've been searching for my older brother's whereabouts, Kagura explained. It wasn't until a few years ago that I finally found my older brother, and learned about what happened to him all these years. I also learned about your existence from my older brother. Especially you, Mr. Noah. My older brother already told me that the reason why he was released from the Tower of Paradise was because you defeated Jalal and awakened him. Kagura gripped the katana in her hand tightly and bowed deeply to Noah. For this, I can only offer you the highest level of gratitude. This kindness, I will definitely remember it in my heart. If there's anything you need me for, please don't hesitate to tell me. As long as it's something I can do, I will do my best. Both Kagura's expression and tone were incredibly sincere when she said this. Obviously, these words all came from Kagura's heart. Under such circumstances, Noah and Alusha finally recovered from their shock, looked at each other, and then smiled faintly. At that moment, Noah spread his hands and said so. If that's the case, why don't you show me some mercy if we meet in the competition? I can't do that. Kagura raised her head and looked at Noah with an extremely solemn expression. Your Excellency's strength is very strong. If you show me mercy, I don't have the confidence to win against you. Is that so? Noah smiled faintly. To be praised as the strongest archmage in this year's Great Demon Combat Arts competition, except for that rock iron Kara, is really something to be proud of. It's a pity that even rock iron Kara was easily defeated by your Excellency. Kagura's expression slightly relaxed, but she still said so. So, when facing your Excellency, I will definitely not show you mercy. Please be prepared. Of course. Noah nodded. I will remember it in my heart. Okay, let's stop with the greetings of our first meeting. Miriana said in an extremely lively manner. Since everyone is already familiar with each other, let's go eat together. Noah, Alusha, and Kagura all nodded without any objections. Just like this, the reason why Kagura showed a certain degree of concern towards Noah finally understood. However, while one doubt was solved, more doubts still existed in Noah's heart. For example, why was Yuno so obsessed with Noah? What was the matter with the magic absorption phenomenon that occurred in the giant egg, Fra Bird? Could it be that there was some secret behind the great demonic martial arts exhibition ceremony? Was Raventail, who was staring at Lumen, Starlight, secretly planning something? One question after another remained unanswered. Almost instinctively, Noah had a faint premonition in his heart. The so-called Great Demon Combat Arts Competition Festival might not be as simple as it seemed on the surface. This time's trip to the King's City might bring about some unavoidable things. However, no matter what happened, as the Archmage of Fairy Tale, Noah would never compromise and would fight to the end. Chapter 1678. The next day, the residents of Klakaska woke up early as usual, full of anticipation as they waited for the start of the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition. The people who had tickets couldn't wait any longer and started to move towards the venue. One by one, they entered the giant egg Fra Bird. As for those without tickets, they gathered in places with projection magic crystals, such as bars, hotels, and restaurants. As they enjoyed their breakfast, they discussed what would happen in today's competition, never tiring of conversation. The group of sorcerers belonging to Fairy Tale did not waste any time. When the sun rose, they hastily finished their breakfast and began to move towards the direction of the huge egg, Fra Bird. Along the way, many people were pointing at the members of Fairy Tale and gossiping about them in private. If it had been before yesterday, these people would not have been as simple as pointing and discussing. However, after yesterday's exciting performance, no one dared to look down on Fairy Tale now. They could only cast curious and respectful gazes at Fairy Tale's group. Suddenly, Mikao and Wakaba, who had been looked down upon for 7 years, felt a sense of pride rise in their hearts. Even their backs straightened a lot. Thus, the group arrived at Egg Frau Bird together. Because the contestants and the audience entered from different passageways, Noah's group of 10 contestants separated from Fairy Tale's group and went to another passageway. In the end, they met an unexpected opponent. Oh. Aren't you guys from Fairy Tale? Sting, who had entered the contestant passageway with Logue, Lucius, Olga, and Shuanai, noticed Noah's group. He immediately stopped and looked around at everyone present. Finally, his gaze stopped on Naz, and the corners of his mouth slowly rose. This is really a fortuitous encounter. I can't believe we met here. Logue, who was walking with Sting, immediately looked at Gadula with a cold glint in his eyes. As for Shuanai, she naturally looked straight at Noah. As usual, she only had eyes for Noah. Under such circumstances, Lucius and Olga actually looked at the same person. Lucius was looking at Gray. Olga was looking at Laxus. The group of people looked at each other from a distance. The sight that met in mid-air seemed to be able to ignite sparks, and there was a slight smell of gunpowder in the air. The rest of the sorcerers from Fairy Tale, who were not targeted by Saber-Tooth's group, noticed something else that surprised them. That was, besides Sting and Logue were 2 cats. The 2 cats, like Heibi, Xia Lulu, and Lily, walked on 2 legs, just like humans. Next to Sting was a cat wearing a vest. Next to Logue was a cat wearing a frog costume. Looking at the 2 cats, Lucy exclaimed in surprise. Could it be that they are surpassers from the world of Edras like Heibi, Xia Lulu, and Lily? Her words attracted everyone's attention to the 2 cats. How rude. I forgot to introduce our companions. Sting curled his lips and smiled. Rector, come out and say hello to everyone from Fairy Tale. Hello, everyone, the surpasser named Rector said pretentiously as he adjusted his vest. Flossie, come out and say hello. Yes, sir, the surpasser named Flossie replied slowly and raised his hand. I'm Flossie. Rector is my companion. Flossie is Logue's companion. Sting grinned. I heard you have a companion like Flossie. Naz? Heibi is a cat. Naz pointed at Flossie, who was wearing a frog costume. Undoubtedly, this one is a dog. Is there something wrong with your eyes? Gray ridiculed mercilessly. Undoubtedly, that's a frog. Are you Nazi-kun? Rector sized Naz up and then said as if he had lost interest. I heard that you are a dragon-slaying archmage like Sting and Logue. I was looking forward to it, but it seems that you have let me down. Rector's words shocked everyone present. Noah was also surprised and looked at Sting and Logue. The same dragon-slaying archmage. Wendy exclaimed as she looked at Sting and Logue. Are you also dragon-slaying archmages? Immediately, Gadula and Raxus cast their gazes towards Justin and Logue. It wasn't until then that Noah faintly felt it. Sting and Logue did have the same type of magic as Naz, Gadula, Wendy, and Laxus. It was the magic of a dragon. Smell it carefully. The 2 of you do have the smell of a dragon. Gadula stared at Sting and Logue. So, you are also dragon-slaying archmages. That's right. The corners of Sting's mouth rose. However, we are also dragon-slaying archmages. As the 3rd generation, we are not on the same level as the 1st and 2nd generation. 1st generation. Alusha frowned. What do you mean? Hearing this, Rector took a step forward and began to explain. The 1st generation refers to the archmages who were personally taught the dragon slayer magic by the dragon. For example, the Dragon Slayer Archmages of the Fire Dragon, the Dragon Slayer Archmages of the Iron Dragon, and the Dragon Slayer Archmages of the Sky Dragon are very typical of the first generation of Dragon Slayer Archmages. Rector said slowly. The second generation refers to the Archmages who have magic crystals with dragon-slaying magic buried in their bodies. For example, the Thunder Dragon's dragon-slaying Archmages are second-generation dragon-slaying Archmages. As for the third generation, it refers to dragon-slaying Archmages like Sting and Logue. Rector puffed out his chest, as if he was talking about himself, and spoke very proudly. There are dragons who personally teach dragon-slaying magic and bury magic crystals of the same attribute in their bodies. This is the third-generation dragon-slaying Archmages. By the way, I am the White Dragon's dragon-slaying Archmage, and Logue is the Shadow Dragon's dragon-slaying Archmage. Sting spread his hands and smiled proudly at Naz. Although I have no interest in being a dragon-slaying Archmage of the old generation, don't look at me like this. In fact, I grew up listening to Brother Naz's legends when I was young. I have admired you since I was a child. At this point, the smile on Sting's face became somewhat sinister. He clenched a fist and stared at Naz. That's why I have to defeat you and prove that I have surpassed you. Same for me, Gadjaloo. Logue raised his eyes and looked straight at Gadjaloo. I grew up listening to your legend since I was a child. I will defeat you with my own hands and prove that I am stronger than you. Hearing this, Noah understood why Sting and Logue had been paying so much attention to Naz and Gadjaloo. It turned out that there was such a reason. You. Gadjaloo's gaze became somewhat dangerous. If you can do it, then give it a try. Naz grinned, his eyes burning with fighting spirit. That's exactly what I want. Thus, the gazes of the dragon-slaying Archmages collided once again, stirring up sparks. At this time, Olyaga glanced at Laxus and smiled coldly. Although I am not a dragon-slaying Archmage, I know how to use lightning-attributed magic. Thunder Dragon over there, are you interested in exchanging a few moves? Laxus didn't answer, only narrowing his eyes. Lucius pressed down on his hat and smiled elegantly. My magic isn't the same as yours. It's just a creation magic, said Yizichin. Sculpt magic. Gray immediately reacted and stared at Lucifer. And Shuanai is a star elemental archmage. Sting shrugged. It seems that we do have a lot of similarities. Chapter 1679. After hearing Sting's words, the group of fairy tale magic shooters fell silent. Come to think of it, fairy tale sorcerer and saber-toothed sorcerer did have a lot of similarities. At the very least, the group of magic shooters here had many similarities. Naz, Gadjaloo, Wendy, Sting, and Rog were all Dragon Slayer magic shooters. Laxus and Olyaga were both thunder magic shooters of the Annihilation system. Gray and Lucius were both creation magic shooters. Lucy and Snow were both star magic shooters. In addition, Fairy Tail and Saber-Tooth were once the strongest guild in the kingdom, and the current strongest guild in the kingdom. There were so many coincidences that made it seem like it was fated to happen. However, at this moment, Noah suddenly spoke. Why does your Saber-Tooth want to be the strongest guild? The sudden question stunned the group of Saber-Tooth's magic shooters. When they reacted, Sting was the first to laugh out loud. I thought you wanted to ask something, but it's actually such a question. Do we need a reason to be the strongest? Hearing this, Noah laughed, laughing very disapprovingly. Then, Noah said, That's right. If that's the case, then we are indeed different from you. Sting and the others were stunned. Under such circumstances, Noah took a step forward and came in front of everyone. His gaze swept over Sting, Rog, Lucius, Olyaga, and Yukinai. After a while, he said word by word. The so-called guild is a place where companions, family, and friends gather. Only when everyone gathers together can it be called a guild. Therefore, we will fight for our companions and become the strongest. As for you, you're just fighting for your reputation at best. You're not on the same level as our beliefs. Noah said resolutely. So, we are different. No, it should be said that you can't compare to us. What did you say? Sting, Logue, Lucifer, and Olyaga were all enraged. Only Xuanai's heart shuddered slightly after hearing Noah's words. He lowered his head and bit his lips. On the other hand, the members of Fairy Tale all showed expressions of agreement. When they looked at the members of Saber-Tooth, their gazes no longer carried any emotions. In the eyes of the magic shooters from Saber-Tooth, it was as if he was looking down on them from above. Thus, fury rose in the hearts of Sting and the others. However, before they could make a move, Noah turned around as if he didn't want to be entangled with them anymore. Let's go. After saying that, Noah ignored Sting and the others and walked toward the venue. The rest of his companions followed suit one by one, as if they did not want to talk to Saber-Tooth's group anymore. They all walked into the venue together. Wait! Sting shouted. Are you trying to escape? Everyone ignored Sting and continued to walk forward. That action caused the anger in Sting's heart to rise to the peak. Soon after, he was so angry that he laughed. Very well, since that's the case, I will participate in the competition later. Let me completely crush your useless self-confidence. This sentence made Noah stop in his tracks. He turned his head and looked at Sting with an undeniable smile. Likewise, likewise. Just wait and see if your useless self-confidence will be crushed. After saying that, Noah didn't say anything else. He led the members of Fairy Tale into the venue, leaving Sting and the others behind. The anger in their hearts couldn't be quelled for a long time. Behind Sting and the others, Snow looked straight at Noah's departing figure. She recalled Noah's words just now, and her eyes were full of uncertainty. Become the strongest for the sake of your companions. After leaving the field of vision of Sting and the others, Naz immediately spoke. Hey, Elisha, Naz said. Let me participate in the competition later. Everyone's eyes immediately gathered on Naz. Seeing that Naz's face was full of fighting spirit, Elisha, Gray, Lucy, and Wendy looked at each other. Clearly, Naz's fighting spirit had been ignited by Sting. As a high mage of the dragon-slaying realm, Naz should also have the idea of competing with Justin, right? Thus, Elisha nodded. Then I'll leave it to you, Naz. Okay. Naz hammered his palm, his eyes burning with fighting spirit. I'm burning up. In that case, I'll go on our side. Gadgelo also said, unwilling to be outdone. I've been annoyed by those guys for a long time. Mira, Julian, and Laxus's eyes suddenly gathered on Noah. If the leader of Team A was Elisha, then the leader of Team B was undoubtedly Noah. In this regard, Noah just pondered for a while before looking at Gadgelo. This time, I won't allow myself to lose to someone from Saber-Tooth. Even so, do you still plan to fight? You won't allow yourself to lose. Gadgelo revealed a rather dangerous grin. Just what I want. Looking at the dangerous smile on Gadgelo's face and the strong will in his eyes, Noah stared at Gadgelo for a while before finally nodding. Then I'll leave it to you. Hello everyone, it's time for the Great Demon Battle Show to begin again. I'm your live reporter, Chabadi Laura. I'll be looking forward to today's show. On the rostrum of the Dome Frau Bird, Chapati picked up the microphone and greeted the audience who were cheering loudly. He then introduced Ajima, who was next to him. The person in charge of commentary is still our Mr. Ajma, and the distinguished guest we've invited today is a reporter from Magic Weekly, Mr. Jason. Magic Weekly. Cool. The reporter named Jason shook his arms very excitedly, as if he had been stimulated by something, or simply shocked by lightning, making people unable to ridicule him. Ignoring Jason like this, Chabadi continued to report. After yesterday's Great Demon Battle show, the rankings of the top 8 guilds have changed to a certain extent. The current rankings are as follows. First place, Sabertooth, 20p. Second place, Fairy Tail A Team, 14p. Third place, Fairy Tail B Team, 13p. Fourth place, Blue Pegasus, 12p. Fifth place, Lamia Scale, 8p. Sixth place, Raven Tail, 6p. Seventh place, Mermaid Heel, 1p. Eighth place, Cotter Cerberus, 0p. The guild that took the first place is the guild that everyone is familiar with, Sabertooth. No wonder they are the strongest guild in the past. Chapati explained enthusiastically. However, behind them, our Fairy Tail is also closely following. There are actually 2 teams occupying the second and third place respectively. It's really unbelievable. The strongest guild in the past is really not just for show. After today's competition, what kind of changes will happen? Let's wait and see. Chabadi announced. Then, the second day of the Great Demon Battle show begins now. Chapter 1680. Accompanied by the loud sound of wheels, wooden chariots drove through the streets of Coloches in a grandiose manner. The wooden war chariots were all connected together by iron chains, forming a long line. Amidst the loud sound of wheels, the chariots moved at a steady speed towards the direction of the giant egg frage. On the moving wooden chariots, a group of magic shooters were racing. That's right, it was a race. Through the projection magic crystal set up in Egg Fra Bird, the magic shooters and the audience from all over the continent could clearly see the entire process of the race. However, it was precisely because of this that all the audience fell into a very strange state of silence when they saw the situation on the projection magic crystal. In particular, the magic shooters from Fairy Tail and Sabertooth had already entered an extremely speechless state. There was no other reason other than the fact that the outcome of the competition was beyond everyone's expectations. The competition on the second day of the Great Demonic Combat Arts Exhibition competition was about chariots. The rules of this competition were very simple. It was to let the contestants of the 8 teams race on the chariots. During the race, the contestants could not fall off the chariot. Once they touched the ground outside the chariot, they would be eliminated. During this period, there were no restrictions on the use of magic, nor were there any restrictions on the use of any means. As long as they did not fall off the chariot and successfully reached the finish line, it would be considered over. Finally, according to the order of arrival at the finish line, the teams of each guild would receive different points. It was such a simple competition. However, it was precisely because of this competition that the audience in the entire venue was speechless. The reason was because of the situation shown in the last projection magic crystal. Woo! In the last part of the wooden chariots that were moving towards the flattened egg, 3 sorcerers were lying on the chariots with ashen faces. They were like worms that were constantly wriggling forward. Those 3 people were Naz, Gadjaloo, and Sting. The contestants of the other teams had already far surpassed these 3 people, and opened up a distance that was absolutely impossible to surpass. Only Naz, Gadjaloo, and Sting were lying on the chariot like worms, crawling forward with great difficulty. Seeing this scene, the audience looked at each other in dismay. Looking at this scene, the sorcerers belonging to Sabertooth lowered their heads in shame, as if they had no face to see anyone. Looking at this scene, the faces of everyone from Fairy Tail twitched. Looking at this scene, Noah almost covered his face. He really couldn't bear to continue watching. Under the strange atmosphere, Chabadi helplessly picked up the microphone and said this with a face full of shame. Looks looks like the contestants from the top 3 teams are all suffering from motion sickness. The audience fell silent. Then, they burst into laughter. What? So, even the former strongest guild and the current strongest guild have weaknesses. Come on. At least you're still opponents. Don't fall to last place. Good luck. Ha 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 ha. The laughter of goodwill and ridicule continued to echo in the field. After yesterday's exciting competition, everyone had already compared Fairy Tale to Saber-Tooth. After yesterday, the battle between the 2 guilds had been the topic of the audience. Everyone was looking forward to it. Today, would Fairy Tale and Saber-Tooth be able to give equally exciting matches? In the end, in the next day's competition, the 2 guilds that had become the hot topic actually performed so amazingly, which made many people happy. The so-called competition was like this. For the audience, it was actually just entertainment. Therefore, these people would cheer if the performance was wonderful, and they would also cheer if the performance was interesting. As long as they were happy, it was enough for these people. Therefore, the performance of Fairy Tale and Saber-Tooth not only did not cause the audience to be disappointed, but also made the audience feel incomparably happy, and their popularity became even more exuberant. However, that was understandable. The top 3 teams were reduced to this point because of motion sickness, which really made people not know whether to laugh or cry. In this way, the top 3 contestants would undoubtedly occupy the last 3 positions in this competition. The audience couldn't help but laugh out loud at this unexpected outcome. It seems that Naz and Gadula won't be able to win many points for us. Mira held her cheek with one hand and looked helpless. Fortunately, Sting of Saber-Tooth is the same, otherwise it would be too disadvantageous for us. That guy named Sting also can't do anything about transportation. Is that really the weakness of the Dragon Slayer magic shooter? Jubian was puzzled. Also, undoubtedly, when you see the word chariot, you can more or less expect the content of the competition to be related to transportation. Why did you let Mr. Naz and Mr. Gadula play? Those 2 idiots insisted on playing, saying that if they didn't play, it would be considered as running away, so they had to play no matter what. Laxus curled his lips and said, I guess that the Dragon Slayer magic shooter of Saber-Tooth also said that he wanted to play and was afraid that he wouldn't be able to get off the stage, so he braced himself and played together with them, right? What the hell is this? Noah didn't know what to say. Previously, when we were confronting each other, you spoke so highly of yourself. In the end, regardless of whether it was Fairy Tale or Saber-Tooth, both of them ended up like this. Doesn't this make you look like a fool? Well, at least Naz and Gadula haven't given up yet. Mira still looked a little helpless, but she comforted him gently. As long as they don't lose to Saber-Tooth, it's fine. In fact, although Naz and Gadula's faces were ashen, they insisted on crawling forward, pulling away from Sting little by little. Sting's face was ugly at this result. He wanted to crawl forward like Naz and Gadula, but he couldn't do it no matter what. Sting, who understood how difficult it was to move forward in a state of motion sickness, finally had a trace of puzzlement and shock. Why? Why can Naz and Gadula insist on moving forward, but I can't? It wasn't until this time that Sting remembered Noah's words. The so-called guild is a place where companions, family, and friends gather. Only when everyone gathers together can it be called a guild. So, we will fight for our companions and become the strongest. And you, at best, are fighting for your reputation, which is not at the same level as our beliefs. So, we are different. No, it should be said that you can't compare to us. Thinking of those words at that time, Sting clenched his teeth and fell silent. Is this the difference between me and them? Is this the reason why they can move forward? Could this be the fairy tale? With these doubts, in the end, Sting was unable to surpass Naz and Gadulu. Naz and Gadula took away the 6th and 7th places respectively, obtaining 2 and 1 points, while he himself got 0 points. Under such circumstances, Sting silently returned to the contestant area amidst the laughter of the audience. The previous provocation of Fairy Tale ended with Sting's complete defeat. However, the conflict between the two guilds did not stop there. Next up is the first duel of the day, Fairy Tale B Team Noah Dole vs Saber-Tooth Shuanai Agulia. Chapter 1681. What? Sting, who had just returned to the contestants' area, did not even have time to say a word before he was awakened by this unexpected pairing. Shuanai versus that man. Rog, Lucius, and Olga were equally shocked. As for Shuanai, she was even more stunned. When she came to her senses, her eyes shone with an unprecedented brilliance, and her jade-like hands slowly clenched and trembled under her coat. It was not because of fear, but because of excitement. Finally, she could finally display her strength in front of that lord. How lucky she was. At this moment, Shuanai was only excited, and not fearful at all. On the contrary, the expressions of Sting, Rog, Lucius, and Olga gradually darkened. Because there was no other way. Although Shuanai's strength was not bad, there was still a huge gap between her and one of the 10 great Saint Magi. And her opponent was someone who could easily deal with Jula, who was ranked 5th among the 10 great Saint Magi. Against such an opponent, Shuanai did not have the slightest chance of winning. Hence, the expressions of Sting and the rest were incomparably ugly. On the other side, Noah also showed a somewhat stunned expression because of this unexpected match. How? How could this be? Julian was caught off guard. It's actually Sir Noah versus that Star Soul Archmage named Shuanai. Not only Julian, but even Laxus and Gadula looked at Noah in surprise. Previously, Shuanai's persistence towards Noah was something everyone had seen clearly. Although they did not know what relationship Noah had with Shuanai, this matter was definitely not simple. In the end, the organizer actually let Noah and Shuanai have a direct duel. Could it be that this was the so-called fate? Noah. Mira could not help but hug Noah's arm with a worried expression. Hearing Mira's call, Noah gradually withdrew his astonished expression and turned his head to look at Mira. Looking at the worried expression on Mira's face, Noah reached out and patted Mira's hand that was tightly hugging his arm as he spoke softly. Don't worry. I'll be fine. But you still don't know what kind of past you have with that child called Shuanai. Mira seemed to be a little worried. It's too difficult for you to fight that child like this. After all, without knowing what kind of past he had with Shuanai, Noah had no idea where to start. If he was careless and hurt the persistence in Shuanai's heart, it might cause that seemingly strong young girl's heart to shatter into pieces. This way, how could Noah make a move on Shuanai? To be honest, I don't know how to fight that girl named Shuanai. Noah laughed bitterly. However, this is something that I must face. Perhaps, she and I are destined to end this. Closure. Yes, closure. Although he didn't remember what kind of relationship he had with that girl named Shuanai, her persistence towards Noah was real. This reminded Noah of Versilia Eva's persistence towards Liena Subble in the world of Elven Sword Dance. Liena Subble had once taken down Versilia in the Elven Sword Dance Festival, but she didn't put Versilia in her eyes from the beginning to the end. That extremely prideful elven had once fallen and did not hesitate to harm her body and future in order to compete with the strongest sword dancer. Why did Versilia not hesitate to go to such extent to win against Lien? The reason, wasn't it to make Lien, who once didn't even look at her, take her seriously? Then, putting himself in her shoes, Noah's life was almost the same as Liena Subble's. It could only be described as a legend. Didn't he hurt some people unintentionally? The answer, perhaps, was yes. And this person was very likely to be Shuanai. Perhaps, even Xuanai was just one of them. That was hard to say. Therefore, Noah couldn't avoid facing Xuanai. Previously, Noah had been thinking about how to solve Xuanai's problem. However, Noah had been unable to find an answer for a long time. Now, the Great Demonic Arts Festival had directly pushed Noah in front of Xuanai. Then, perhaps this was the world telling Noah. In order to not have any regrets before the final battle, he had to face the girl's persistence. Other than that, there was no other solution. I have to fight this round. Noah gently stroked Myra's head. Don't worry about me. There will always be a way. Hearing this, Mira opened her mouth, but nothing came out. After a while, Mira smiled. Her delicate face revealed a gentle expression that was no different from before. I believe in you. Noah returned a smile and hugged Mira into his arms. After kissing Myra's forehead, he let go of his fiancée in his arms and walked into the arena under the gaze of his companions. At the same time, Xuanai also slowly walked into the arena under the gaze of her companions. Not long after, Noah and Xuanai entered the arena at the same time. Their gazes instantly met in midair. Oh! The audience in the arena burst into cheers. Not to mention the audience, even Chapati on the rostrum raised his voice and reported excitedly. Now walking into the arena are Noah Doria from Fairy Tale and Xuanai Agulia from Saber-Tooth. In yesterday's competition, both of them had shown extraordinary strength to everyone in the competition segment and duel segment. Today, both of them will meet in the first round of the duel segment. They are the magic shooters from the former and current strongest guilds respectively. This battle will not disappoint us. No matter which side it is, both of them are very powerful. Yajma gave a compliment. I sincerely hope that both of them can have a regret-free competition and let us see the excellence of both guilds. No regrets. Cool. No regrets. Cool. Even Jason started to babble nonsense. The atmosphere in the arena was completely brought to a climax. Chapter 1682. Then, on the rostrum, Chabadi glanced at Noah and then at Xuanai. After confirming that both of them were ready, he raised his hand. The first duel of the second day of the Great Demonic Arts Exhibition, Fairy Tale B Team, Noah Doria vs Saber-Tooth Xuanai Agulia. Begin. As soon as the announcement of the start of the duel, Xuanai immediately took a step back and raised the key in her hand. She began to mobilize all the magic in her body, causing the majestic magic to surge up and infuse into the star soul key in her hand. Accompanied by a slight tremor, the star soul key that was tightly held in Xuanai's hand suddenly bloomed with light. That light gave everyone present a huge shock. Because the light that bloomed from the star soul key in Xuanai's hand was not the golden light that symbolized the star soul of the 12 zodiac gates, but an ominous purple-black light. The ominous black light not only surprised everyone around, it even made Noah frown a little. There was no other reason. At this moment, Noah clearly felt it. In the air, an extremely sticky feeling began to surge like a swamp. Then, bursts of purplish-black fog appeared without any warning and filled the entire venue. Poison. Noah's frown deepened. No, this is not poison. Not only Noah, but the rest of the people who saw this scene with their own eyes were also puzzled. What is that? Alusha's expression slightly froze. It feels very bad. The smell of the air has changed. Wendy's nose twitched cutely, her little face became a little uncomfortable. That's a very dangerous smell. What is that Xuanai planning to do? Gray was puzzled. I have a bad feeling about this. Lucy's face was even more bewildered. That key doesn't seem to be the key to the 12 zodiac gates. After being reminded by Lucy, everyone realized that. In Xuanai's hand, the key that was emitting an ominous purple-black light was not a bright golden color. That key was completely black in color. Furthermore, there was a black snake coiling around it. It wasn't just the luster. Even its appearance was very strange. Holding this key, Xuanai said to Noah in an extremely serious manner. If I only rely on the power of the 12 zodiac gates, I have no hope of defeating you. Therefore, I will directly use my greatest trump card, the power of the 13th gate. The power of the 13th door. Noah was stunned. The power of the 13th door. The others were also stunned. Only Lucy sucked in a breath of cold air. It can't be. Does the girl called Xuanai have the key to the 13th door? Do you know what's going on? Gray quickly asked. The so-called 13th door. I've only heard of it. Lucy couldn't help but step forward. She came to the guardrail and leaned forward slightly. Looking at the key in Xuanai's hand, she said in shock.